So for step 12, attaching the gearbox. Well, this is really quite cool because here is our gearbox and here is our chassis. And here is the chassis from 1984. And you can see even on the chassis right down there it says 1984. And we're going to be attaching modern technology to that old bathtub frame. And you can see that the way this is done, these pieces end up sliding inside of the bottom of the chassis and then it clips onto the top. And you can see it there, and then we're going to use screws to mount the top part of it. Really cool, actually. So there are the screws that we need, and of course there's our 1984 chassis and our modern day gearbox that we're going to attach to this. Now the one thing we do have to do, just like with the old Hornet, that piece right there, which is here, we need to cut that out before you do anything else. Now I'm just going to do that with my side cutters and then we'll get started on this. So I'll set this up and let's put the new gearbox on the old chassis. Okay, so I've already cut that hole out. So let's see how this works. So if you remember, the way this would work on an old Hornet is there's pieces that you stick inside of there, and then they come out and it allows for the swing arm of the solid axle. Well, obviously with this, we're not going to be doing that. But what they've obviously done is built a bracket that is going to be designed to slide into either side like we normally do, only it's going to come up and go inside of this piece here, which we'll see how this goes. There we go, in on either side. So now that it sits like that, and for this to fit, we're going to be using these screws. So we've got a screw, a washer, and that's going to go into the top here. Let's make sure that that's going to go inside of there, go all the way through to the other side, and then we're using a flange nut to fit this into. Now I think that's not going to work that way, so I'm going to fit it this way. So I'll use the screwdriver, hold the flange nut on the other side, and screw this in. Now, I've not gone all the way because I want to make sure that the other side goes in just as well. So we need our screw, our washer. That's got to fit inside there all the way through to the other end. And let's maybe screw it in a bit, maybe it'll help. There we go. And grab our flange nut. And I'll screw this in. And same again on that side. Now I'm not over tightening, but I'm making sure that it actually is fitting in okay, and the screw doesn't want to keep turning, which it doesn't, so it's fine. So there we go. There is our new gearbox on the old Hornet chassis. Very cool design. So that means that step 12 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 13 and attach the underguard. So for step 13, attaching the underguard, well, this is also strengthening the whole back end, because in the old Hornet, these holes on the underside were holding in the brackets that were going to eventually hold in the solid axle. Well, this is no different really, because we slid in those pieces on the underside, so these screws are going to tighten everything up and make sure everything is solid. But there's also a few more screws that need to be put onto the backside of this as well. So all of these will strengthen up the back end. So there are the screws, our flathead tapping screws, flange tapping screws, etc. And there is the E1 piece that we need to put on. So I'll set this up and let's put that on. So first off, I think what we'll do is let's get these flange screws in place, because you can see on the underside here, those holes will come together and they're going to hold everything in on the bottom, just like on an original Hornet in a sense. So let's grab the screws and I'm just going to pull this in, because you can see that the holes aren't in, unless you push this in, the holes aren't going to line up. Let's get one of them in, and I'll screw that one down. Now, I'm not going all the way because I want to make sure that the other ones go in fine as well. Now I will tighten it all up, but not yet. So same again on the other side. Let's grab those two. And again, we're going to push this in. Get those screws in place. Grab the last of those flange screws. And we'll screw that in. Okay, so now that they're all in and nothing's binding, I can screw these all the way in. And when you get to the end, you'll know. I mean, with the tapping screw and going into the hard plastic, once it's at the end, it's at the end. Just checking here. Yeah. So those ones are in. So now we need to put on the E1 piece. So because we've got this piece to put on, and there are 4 of the MA9 screws, which are longer, and 2 of the MA10, which are shorter, let's get the MA10s out of the way just so that there's no confusion. So you can see that with this, it's going to sit like this. So it's going to sit on here like that. So over all of those holes, just like that. And it kind of fits in place on the back side here. They fit onto those two. And then everything else just is basically lined up. So because we know that those MA10s are the smaller tapping screws, let's get those in first. And that way we're not confusing anything. So there's one. And there's 2. Now, I'm not going to screw these all the way down because I want to make sure that everything else is right. But because we know that there's 4 screws left over, they're all MA9s, we know that they're the ones that are going to fit into those holes. So let's make sure that this is all lined up and seating right. So we'll get that one there. And we'll get the one in the back here. these ones. And again, I'm not tightening everything down yet. I want to make sure that all the screws go in okay before I tighten anything down. Okay, so you can see all of the screws have gone into the holes without any problems. So I will now start screwing them all the way in. And because they're flatheads, the bottom will be nice and flat. And there we go. So there are the 6 there, and we've got our 4 of those tapping ones there. So that means the whole back end is now nice and solid, and that is what it ends up looking like. Very cool. It's just so cool to see something so different on a Hornet. Huh. So that means that step 13 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 14, and we're going to attach the side guards.